Jonathan Roumie stands at the microphone, his voice trembling with emotion as tears stream down his face. "I need to share something with you," he says, gripping the podium. "3 nights ago, I experienced something that changed my understanding of eternity forever. What I saw, what I felt, it was more real than anything I've ever experienced." The packed auditorium falls completely silent as the actor who portrays Jesus prepares to reveal a divine encounter that will transform everyone present. The silence stretches through the Chicago Convention Center as Jonathan wipes his eyes with the back of his hand. "I'm sorry," he whispers into the microphone, his voice barely audible. "I've been trying to find the words for 3 days now." The audience of 800 faithful believers leans forward, sensing something profound is about to unfold. Several people in the front rows begin to weep, simply witnessing his raw vulnerability on stage. "You have to understand," Jonathan continues, his breathing steadying slightly. "This happened during what should have been an ordinary Tuesday night. I was in my apartment in New York preparing for bed after a long day of interviews." He pauses, looking out at the sea of expectant faces. "I'd been struggling with doubt lately, questioning whether my portrayal of Jesus was truly honoring God, or if I was somehow falling short of the calling." A woman in the third row raises her hand to her heart, recognizing the spiritual warfare that many believers face. Jonathan notices her gesture and nods knowingly. "The enemy had been whispering lies to me for weeks," he admits, "telling me I wasn't worthy, that I was deceiving people, that my faith wasn't strong enough to carry this responsibility." His voice grows stronger as he speaks, finding courage in his transparency. "I knelt beside my bed that night, not to pray for a vision or a sign, but simply to surrender my fears to God. I remember saying, 'Father, if this role is meant to be, please show me. If not, I'm ready to walk away.'" The humility in his voice resonates through the auditorium. Several pastors in the audience nod, understanding the weight of questioning one's divine purpose when faced with immense spiritual responsibility. Jonathan's eyes grow distant as he recalls that pivotal moment. "I must have fallen asleep while praying because the next thing I knew, I was standing in the most beautiful place I've ever seen." His voice takes on a reverent whisper, but this wasn't a dream. Every sensation was amplified, more vivid than real life. The colors were so intense they seemed to sing, and the air itself felt alive with love. There was this pathway made of what looked like crystalline light, stretching as far as I could see. Each step I took felt weightless, like I was walking on solidified grace. He gestures with his hands, trying to capture the indescribable. The ground beneath my feet hummed with a frequency that I felt in my bones. A song of creation that every atom in my body recognized and celebrated. A hush falls over the crowd as Jonathan's description begins to paint a picture of the divine realm. To my left and right, gardens stretched endlessly, filled with flowers that seemed to be made of pure joy. When I looked at them, I could feel their happiness radiating into my heart. His face lights up with the memory. It wasn't just beauty, it was beauty that loved me back, that knew me completely. As I walked further down this path, I began to hear voices. Not words exactly, but communication that bypassed language entirely. Jonathan's eyes well up again as he remembers. It was praise, pure and unfiltered, rising from everything around. Emmy, the trees, the flowers, even the light itself was worshiping. The Catholic actor's theological understanding shines through as he describes a creation united in adoration. Then I saw them, he says, his voice breaking with emotion. People, countless souls moving with purpose and joy, their faces radiant. With a peace I've never witnessed on earth, he pauses to collect himself. They weren't floating on clouds or sitting around playing harps. They were engaged in what looked like meaningful work, creating things of beauty, learning, growing, celebrating. The description challenges traditional heavenly stereotypes. An elderly man in the front row wipes tears from his cheeks as Jonathan continues. What struck me most was how fully alive everyone appeared, more alive than we are here. Their bodies seemed to be perfected versions of themselves, free from pain, limitation, or weariness. The actor's background in theater helps him articulate the profound physicality of his vision. They moved with grace and purpose that spoke of eternal significance. I noticed a group of children playing a game that involved creating landscapes with their thoughts. As they imagined mountains, rivers, and forests, these things actually materialized around them. Jonathan's wonder is palpable, but it wasn't magic. It was the natural result of beings who were fully aligned with God's creative power. They were co-creators in the truest sense, participating in the ongoing work of divine imagination. Suddenly, I became aware of music, but not like any earthly composition. It was as if every beautiful song ever written was playing simultaneously, yet somehow in perfect harmony. His hands move expressively as he speaks. The melodies seem to weave through everything: the light, the air, the very fabric of space. I realized this was the soundtrack of eternity, the song that holds all of creation together. A young mother in the audience clutches her baby closer, tears streaming down her face as she envisions this divine symphony. Jonathan's eyes find hers for a moment, and he smiles gently. The most incredible part was that I could hear individual voices within this cosmic choir. People from every nation, every era, their unique contributions creating an impossible, beautiful tapestry of worship that stretched across all of time. As I continued walking, I noticed that everyone I passed seemed to know me, and I somehow knew them, too. Not their earthly names or stories, but their essence, their true selves as God created them to be. Jonathan's Catholic understanding of communion of saints becomes evident in his description. There was an instant recognition, a love that needed no introduction because it had existed before time began. Then I saw something that made me fall to my knees right there on that crystal pathway, Jonathan says, his voice dropping to a reverent whisper. In the distance, there was a light so brilliant, so pure that everything else seemed dim in comparison. He struggles to find adequate words, but it wasn't blinding or harsh. It was the kind of light that illuminates everything hidden, that reveals truth with perfect love. If his words are stirring faith in your heart right now, comment the words "I believe" below. The auditorium is completely silent, except for the soft sounds of people weeping. As I knelt there, overwhelmed by the beauty and majesty of what I was witnessing, I felt a presence approach me from behind. Jonathan's entire demeanor changes, becoming even more reverential. I didn't turn around because I knew who it was. The air itself seemed to bow in recognition of his approach. A hand touched my shoulder, and every cell in my body came alive with indescribable love. It was warmth and peace and acceptance and home all at once. His voice trembles with the memory. Then I heard a voice, not audible, but somehow more real than sound, speaking directly to my heart. This is what you're preparing hearts for. This is why I chose you. I finally found the courage to turn around, and when I did, Jonathan pauses. Overcome with emotion, I saw the face I've been trying to portray for years, but infinitely more beautiful, more loving, more real than I could ever capture. He wipes fresh tears from his eyes. His eyes held all the love that has ever existed. And I understood that every moment of joy I'd ever experienced was just a tiny reflection of what lived in those eyes. A pastor in the audience stands up, unable to contain his emotion, and begins quietly praying in tongues. Others join him as the presence of God seems to fill the auditorium through Jonathan's testimony. He didn't speak with words, but I heard him clearly. You've been worried about being worthy to portray me. But Jonathan, you were created for this moment, for this purpose. Trust in my strength, not your own. Then he showed me something that broke my heart and filled it simultaneously. Jonathan continues, his voice stronger now. I saw the earth from this heavenly perspective, and I could see the spiritual battle raging for every human soul. His years of playing Jesus seemed to have prepared him for this prophetic insight. But what I noticed most was how desperately he loves each person, how he's constantly reaching out, constantly inviting. I watched as prayers rose from the earth like incense, each one precious to him, each one heard and treasured. I saw how every act of kindness, every moment of faith, every choice to love created ripples of light that reached into this heavenly realm. Jonathan's voice grows passionate. Nothing, absolutely nothing, done in love is ever wasted or forgotten. It all matters. It all counts for eternity. He showed me people who had given up hope, who thought they were too far gone, too broken for God's love. But from heaven's perspective, I could see how close they were to breakthrough, how their struggles were actually drawing them closer to his heart. The actor's compassion shines through his words. I wanted to shout down to earth, don't give up. You're closer than you think. He's right there beside you. A woman near the back of the auditorium suddenly stands and raises her hands in worship, and her action creates a wave of others doing the same. Jonathan pauses, allowing the Holy Spirit to move through the crowd. "This is exactly what I saw," he says softly, hearts responding to his love, spirits recognizing their true home. "You're experiencing right now a small taste of what I witnessed in that place." Then he placed his hands on my face, and I felt every doubt, every fear, every insecurity I ever carried simply dissolve away. It was like being reborn, but into the person I was always meant to be. Jonathan's face radiates peace as he recalls this moment. He said, "When you portray me on earth, you're not acting, Jonathan. You're remembering. You're showing people glimpses of home." I realized in that moment that my struggles with feeling unworthy weren't obstacles to overcome. They were necessary parts of the journey. Every moment of doubt had driven me deeper into prayer, deeper into dependence on Him. The wisdom in His words reflects years of spiritual growth. The enemy's attempts to discourage me had actually been used by God to prepare my heart for this revelation. He showed me scenes from the chosen moments I thought were just good acting, and revealed how His Spirit had been moving through those performances to touch hearts around the world. Jonathan's humility is evident as he speaks. "I saw people whose lives had been changed, marriages restored, faith rekindled, all because they saw Jesus through this show. But I understood it was never about my talent. It was about His love working through surrendered vessels." An atmosphere of awe settles over the auditorium as people begin to understand the divine purpose behind the show that has touched millions. I watched as viewers who had been distant from God found themselves drawn back to prayer, to church, to reading Scripture. The ripple effects of each episode were like waves of light spreading across the globe. His voice fills with wonder at God's sovereignty. Then He showed me something that made me weep with joy. I saw this very moment, this testimony I'm sharing with you right now. He showed me how these words would travel beyond this room, how they would touch hearts that are hungry for hope. Jonathan looks directly into the audience. Some of you came here tonight feeling distant from God, questioning His love for you. He brought you here specifically to hear this message. He revealed to me that every person in this room has been called to be part of His work on earth. Not just pastors and missionaries, but teachers, parents, business owners, students. All of you are meant to be lights in this dark world. The democratizing message of universal calling resonates through His words. Your ordinary moments are extraordinary opportunities to reflect His love to others. I saw how your simple acts of kindness create cascading effects that reach far beyond what you can imagine. A smile to a stranger, patience with a difficult child, forgiveness offered when it's undeserved. These are the building blocks of His kingdom on earth. Jonathan's voice carries prophetic authority. You have no idea how significant your daily choices are in the grand tapestry of His plan. As this vision began to fade, I felt myself being gently drawn back toward my earthly body. But before I left, He gave me one final gift. Jonathan's voice drops to a whisper again. He let me feel for just a moment the depth of His love for every person who would hear this testimony. The love He has for you, yes, you personally, is beyond human comprehension. A sound of collective weeping rises from the audience as the weight of God's personal love settles over each individual heart. I felt His heart breaking for those who think they're unlovable, His joy over those who choose faith despite their circumstances, His pride in those who serve others sacrificially. Jonathan pauses, allowing the emotion to wash over the room. He knows your name, your struggles, your dreams, and He loves you completely. The last thing I remember before opening my eyes back in my bedroom was a promise He whispered to my heart. This vision is not just for you, Jonathan. It's for everyone who has been searching for proof that I am real, that heaven is real, that their faith matters. His voice carries the weight of divine commission. He told me to share this story exactly as I experienced it, holding nothing back. When I finally opened my eyes in my apartment, I was still on my knees beside my bed. But something fundamental had changed within me. The doubts were gone, replaced by an unshakable certainty of my purpose and His love. Jonathan's transformation is visible to everyone watching. I looked at my clock and realized that what felt like hours in heaven had been only minutes in earthly time. I spent the rest of that night writing down every detail I could remember, terrified that I might forget even the smallest aspect of what I'd experienced. But as I wrote, I realized that this vision had been seared into my heart in a way that could never fade. His commitment to preserving the vision shows his understanding of its importance. Every word, every image, every feeling was permanently etched into my soul. The next morning, I called my spiritual director and shared what had happened. He listened quietly, then said something that confirmed what I already knew in my heart. "Jonathan, this wasn't just for you. God has given you this vision to share with His people who are hungry for hope." The validation from spiritual authority adds credibility to his extraordinary experience. He reminded me that throughout Scripture, God has used visions to encourage His people and draw them closer to Himself. Over the next 2 days, I found myself changed in ways I'm still discovering. My prayers became deeper, more intimate. Reading Scripture felt like receiving personal letters from a beloved friend. Jonathan's face glows with newfound spiritual vitality. Even the challenging aspects of my work on The Chosen began to feel like sacred privileges rather than burdens. Every scene, every interaction became an opportunity to honor what I had witnessed. A young man in the audience raises his hand to his heart, clearly moved by the testimony of transformation. My relationships with family and friends deepened because I could see them through heaven's eyes, as beloved children of God, each carrying immense worth and potential. Jonathan's enhanced perspective on humanity shines through. Difficult people became opportunities to practice the unconditional love I had experienced in that sacred place. I began to notice God's presence in ordinary moments in ways I never had before. A child's laughter, the warmth of sunlight, the kindness of a stranger. All of these became windows into the divine realm I had visited. His sensitivity to God's presence in everyday life reflects the lasting impact of his vision. I realized that heaven isn't just a future destination, but it's a reality that intersects with our daily lives in countless ways. When my agent called about this speaking engagement, I initially hesitated. How do you put the indescribable into words? How do you share something so sacred without diminishing its power? Jonathan's wrestle with sharing such a personal experience shows his reverence for the sacred. But then I remembered his words about preparing hearts for eternity, and I knew this was exactly what he meant. I've shared this vision with only a handful of people before tonight, and each time I've witnessed the same response you're having right now. Hearts opening, faith being rekindled, hope being restored. He gestures toward the audience where many are still weeping and worshiping. This is the power of authentic encounter with the divine. It changes everything it touches. Some of you might be wondering if this was real or just an incredibly vivid dream. All I can tell you is that nearly a week later, I can still feel the lingering effects of that place in my spirit. Jonathan's conviction is unshakable. He addresses potential skeptics. The peace, the love, the sense of purpose, these haven't faded. If anything, they've grown stronger each day as I have learned to live in the reality of what I experienced. I've been asked if I think everyone can have visions like this, and honestly, I don't know. What I do know is that God meets each of us exactly where we are in the way that we need most. His humility prevents him from claiming his experience as a universal template. For some, it might be how he's been drawing you through circumstances you might not have understood. Your presence here tonight is not accidental. For some of you, you've been walking through a season of doubt, wondering if God really sees your struggles or cares about your pain. I saw your tears offered as precious prayers, each one collected and treasured in heaven. His words bring visible comfort to several people in the audience. Your faith, even when it feels small and shaky, is seen and celebrated by all of heaven. Others of you have been serving faithfully in quiet ways, wondering if your efforts matter, if anyone notices your sacrifices. I saw the golden threads of your service woven throughout eternity's tapestry, creating beauty beyond your imagination. The validation speaks directly to the hearts of faithful servants. Every prayer you've prayed for others, every act of kindness you performed in secret, every moment you've chosen love over selfishness, all of it matters immensely. And some of you have been running from God's call on your life, afraid you're not qualified or worthy of the purposes He has for you. I saw your names written in His heart. You're destined secured by His love, not your performance. Jonathan's words echo with divine authority. He's not looking for perfect people. He's looking for available hearts. Your willingness is more valuable to Him than your credentials. There are parents here tonight who have been praying for ward children. Marriage partners who have been interceding for struggling relationships. Individuals who have been contending for breakthrough in seemingly impossible situations. His prophetic insight cuts through the audience. I saw your prayers creating pathways of light in the spiritual realm. Breakthrough is closer than you think. Don't give up now. An elderly woman in a wheelchair suddenly lifts her hands in praise. Tears of hope streaming down her face. I saw young people in this audience who feel lost and purposeless, wondering if your life has meaning. Heaven is cheering for you. Jonathan's voice rises with passionate conviction. You were created for such a time as this, to be light in a generation that desperately needs hope. Your age doesn't disqualify you. It positions you perfectly for what he wants to do. Business leaders and influencers, you have platforms that can carry his love to thousands of people. Teachers and healthcare workers, you have daily opportunities to minister healing and hope. Students and artists, you have the power to shape culture with heaven's values. His words speak to the divine calling within secular vocations. Every sphere of society needs his representatives, and he's placed you exactly where you are for a purpose. I need to tell you about one more aspect of the vision, something that relates directly to this moment we're sharing together. Jonathan's intensity increases as he builds toward a crucial revelation. I saw gatherings like this one where his spirit would move powerfully through shared testimony and corporate worship. I saw hearts being healed, relationships being restored, callings being clarified, and purposes being renewed, but most importantly, I saw the ripple effects of these encounters spreading far beyond the walls of auditoriums like this one. People would leave changed, carrying his presence into their families, workplaces, and communities. The vision of transformation spreading organically through relationships captures the essence of kingdom advancement. What happens here tonight doesn't end here tonight. You're going to carry this experience into every life you touch. He showed me social media posts, conversations over coffee, phone calls to distant relatives, all carrying the fragrance of what you've experienced here. Seeds of faith being planted in unexpected soil, hope being ignited in hearts that had grown cold. Jonathan's understanding of modern communication channels reflects divine awareness of contemporary culture. You won't have to manufacture opportunities to share. They'll present themselves naturally as people notice the change in you. I saw some of you stepping into ministry roles you never imagined. Others deepening your commitment to serving your local churches, and still others finding your primary mission field within your own families. The diversity of callings reflects God's desire to work through every believer. There's no hierarchy. In His kingdom, only different assignments within the same magnificent purpose of revealing His love to the world. For those of you struggling with addiction or destructive habits, I saw your chains being broken tonight. Not through willpower, but through the power of encountering His overwhelming love. His words carry supernatural authority for deliverance. The shame and condemnation you've carried are not from Him. He sees you as beloved, worthy, and capable of complete transformation through His grace. A young man near the back suddenly falls to his knees, clearly experiencing breakthrough in that very moment. Those of you dealing with anxiety and depression, I saw peace flooding your minds and hearts, replacing chaos with His perfect rest. Jonathan's voice becomes increasingly anointed as he continues prophesying over the audience. The storms in your thoughts are being stilled by His voice speaking peace be still over your mind. Married couples who have been struggling, I saw your love being renewed and strengthened. Singles who have been waiting, I saw divine connections being prepared for you. Families experiencing discord, I saw healing and restoration flowing through your relationships. The comprehensive nature of His prophetic words touches every aspect of human experience. No situation is too broken, no relationship too damaged for His redemptive power to transform. But here's what I need you to understand. What you're feeling right now, this sense of His presence and love isn't meant to be a temporary emotional high. It's meant to be your new normal. Jonathan's passion reaches a crescendo as he delivers this crucial message. The vision I had wasn't. His prophetic declaration over the region carries spiritual authority that seems to resonate through the very atmosphere. Years from now, you'll look back at this moment as the night everything changed, the night you encountered heaven's reality in a way that transformed your entire existence. Suddenly, Jonathan stops speaking and tilts his head as if listening to something only he can hear. The auditorium grows eerily quiet, and many people sense a shift in the spiritual atmosphere. Wait. He whispers into the microphone, "He's here. He's here right now." His eyes widen with the same wonder he described from his vision. I can see him moving through this room, touching hearts, healing wounds, fulfilling the very promises I witnessed in heaven. Without warning, people throughout the auditorium begin falling to their knees, overwhelmed by an invisible presence. A woman near the front starts weeping uncontrollably as decades of pain seem to lift from her shoulders. A teenager stands with his hands raised, speaking in a language he's never learned. "This is it," Jonathan breathes into the microphone, his voice filled with awe. "This is what I saw, heaven touching earth, his love made manifest among his people." The supernatural atmosphere intensifies as reports of healing begin spreading through the crowd. A man throws away his crutches, walking for the first time in years. A woman removes her hearing aids, able to hear perfectly without them. "Do you see?" Jonathan calls out, his voice trembling with excitement. The same power I witnessed in that heavenly realm is available here, now, because he is the same yesterday, today, and forever. Geography doesn't limit his love. An elderly pastor near the back suddenly stands and begins prophesying over the crowd in a voice stronger than his aged frame should allow. "Thus says the Lord, I have heard your cries, I have seen your faithfulness, and tonight I pour out my spirit without measure." His words seem to carry supernatural authority, and the entire auditorium erupts in worship and weeping. Jonathan nods in recognition, understanding that his vision is being fulfilled in real time. "This is exactly what he showed me would happen," Jonathan declares, his face radiant with joy. Not just a beautiful story about heaven, but heaven breaking through into our reality. As he speaks, more miraculous manifestations occur throughout the crowd. Relationships are being restored as family members embrace and forgive each other. Prodigal children call their parents. Marriages are being healed right there in the pews. The presence of God becomes so thick that even the skeptics in the audience find themselves on their faces, unable to deny the reality of what they're experiencing. A news reporter who came to cover the event as a curious observer finds herself sobbing as God's love overwhelms every defense she's built against faith. "I came here to write a story," she whispers to her cameraman, "but I become part of the story instead." Jonathan steps away from the podium, no longer needing to speak as God himself takes over the service. Healings multiply throughout the auditorium, not just physical, but emotional, relational, and spiritual. Years of depression lift like fog in sunlight. Addictions lose their power in the face of overwhelming love. Broken dreams are resurrected. With supernatural hope, "I can see the angels," whispers a young girl, her eyes focused on something invisible to most others. "They're everywhere celebrating what's happening here." Her innocent observation confirms what many are sensing, that the veil between heaven and earth has become thin in this sacred moment. The worship that rises from 800 voices seems to harmonize with the heavenly choir Jonathan described in his vision. As the supernatural encounter reaches its peak, Jonathan realizes that his vision wasn't just about what he saw in heaven. It was about what heaven planned to do on earth. Every detail he witnessed was prophetic preparation for this very moment. The love, the healing, the transformation he observed in that celestial realm was meant to manifest in this Chicago auditorium. "We're not just learning about heaven," he announces with prophetic authority, "we're experiencing it." The climax reaches its crescendo as people begin reporting supernatural encounters with deceased loved ones who appear to be celebrating with them, confirming the reality of the communion of saints Jonathan witnessed in his vision. The boundary between earth and heaven seems to dissolve completely as God's people experience a foretaste of eternal glory. Testimonies of miraculous provision, divine encounters, and restored relationships pour forth from every section of the auditorium. In this moment of divine climax, Jonathan understands the full purpose of his heavenly vision. It wasn't just personal encouragement for his role in The Chosen. It was prophetic preparation for a movement of God that would begin here and spread around the world. Heaven had given him a preview of the great awakening that was starting tonight, in this very room with these very people, through the very testimonies they would carry into the world. As the supernatural intensity begins to gentle into a sweet lingering presence, Jonathan returns to the microphone with tears of gratitude streamed down his face. "Friends, what we've experienced here tonight is exactly what my vision prepared me for. Heaven didn't just want me to see its beauty. It wanted me to witness its power to transform lives here on earth. His voice carries the wonder of someone who has seen prophecy fulfilled before his very eyes. Throughout the auditorium, people are quietly embracing, praying together, and sharing testimonies of what God has done in their hearts during this unprecedented encounter. The atmosphere remains charged with divine presence, but peaceful now, like the gentle afterglow of a powerful storm. I know you feel different, Jonathan observes, because you are different. You've been marked by heaven itself, commissioned as carriers of this love to a world desperate for hope. Before we leave this sacred space, I want you to understand that what happened here tonight wasn't an ending, it was a beginning. You've been given a taste of eternity, a deposit of heaven's reality that you're called to steward and share. His words help the audience process their experience and understand their responsibility to carry it forward. The vision I shared led to this encounter, and this encounter is meant to lead to countless others as you become living testimonies of His love. As people slowly begin to prepare to leave, many exchanging contact information and promising to stay connected, Jonathan offers a final benediction. May the peace you've experienced here tonight guard your hearts and minds. May the love you've encountered transform every relationship you enter. And may the purpose you've discovered tonight give meaning to every day you have left on this earth. His blessing carries the authority of one who has truly seen heaven. Go in the power of what you've witnessed. Carry the presence you've experienced, and never forget that you are beloved children of the Most High God, destined for eternity, but called to impact this world while you still draw breath. As Jonathan speaks these final words, the atmosphere seems to seal the experience into each heart, ensuring that this encounter will never be forgotten or lose its transformative power. 1 month later, testimonies from that extraordinary night continue to pour in from around the world. Videos of Jonathan's testimony and the subsequent supernatural encounter have reached millions, sparking revival fires in churches, families, and communities far beyond Chicago. The vision he received has indeed become a catalyst for the great awakening he prophesied. Lives continue to be transformed as people watch and re-watch his account of heaven's reality. Churches report record attendance as people hunger for more of what they witnessed through the live stream. Marriage counselors note unprecedented rates of reconciliation. Addiction recovery centers experience breakthrough after breakthrough as people apply the love and hope they encountered through Jonathan's testimony. The ripple effects of one man's willingness to share his heavenly vision continue expanding, touching lives in ways no human strategy could have orchestrated. Jonathan himself has been transformed by the experience of seeing his vision fulfilled so dramatically. His portrayal of Jesus in The Chosen has gained new depth and authenticity as audiences sense they're watching someone who has truly encountered the divine. His willingness to be vulnerable and share his most sacred experience has opened doors for ministry opportunities he never imagined, confirming that heaven's purposes are always greater than our understanding. The young mother who clutched her baby during his testimony now leads a thriving ministry to other young parents. The elderly pastor who prophesied that night has seen his small congregation grow into a regional movement. The skeptical news reporter has become a powerful voice for faith in mainstream media. Each person touched that night has become a carrier of heaven's reality, multiplying the impact of one man's obedience to share his divine encounter. As Jonathan reflects on how God used his moment of deepest doubt to birth his greatest revelation, he understands that heaven's timing is always perfect. The vision came precisely when he needed it, not just for his own encouragement, but to prepare him for a global ministry he never sought but cannot escape. Every day brings new confirmation that what he experienced was not just for him, but for the multitudes who continue to be touched by his testimony. Perhaps you're listening to this story today and wondering if God still speaks through visions. If heaven is truly as real and beautiful as Jonathan described, if your own life has eternal significance, take heart. The same God who gave Jonathan that glimpse of eternity is intimately aware of your struggles, dreams, and deepest longings. His love for you is just as overwhelming, His plans for your life just as magnificent. Will you open your heart to encounter Him today? If this testimony has touched your heart, please subscribe for more inspiring stories of faith and share in the comments below how God has been speaking to your own life.